Hello and welcome to Australian Transformers Weekly. We are bringing you Transformers news and views and opinions and opinions and feelings from around the world. This is episode 187. We're recording live on Friday, the 12th of April, 2019. This week, there is a bit of a blast from the past coming back in the third-party world. But, it's been upgraded. It's got a few new things. There's a lot of discussion about Bumblebee, and there's an interesting repaint of a not so distant past Optimus Prime that is looking pretty hot and coming at us. All that and more is coming up after this. Going to be a slightly more intimate and quiet show this week. It's just two of us. I'm Jason. I said intimate and quiet. It's okay.
Nothing has to be an innuendo.
No, fair enough. No, not everything does. It is. I'm Jason. It's been a few weeks since I've been on the show. I've been dealing with a bit of stuff and I've been away. Joining me tonight, we have Max coming to us from Adelaide. How are you doing, Max?
I'm doing all right, thank you, Jason. Yeah, mostly been busting my balls at uni, playing a lot of video games and getting ready for the toy fair this weekend.
First thing he says on the show is that not everything needs to be innuendo. Second thing he says on the show is that he's been busting his balls.
Okay. Yeah, well, it wasn't an innuendo.
No, it was not. It's literally busting. Just get someone to kick you, like over and over. Actually, that's you're doing toy fair this weekend. That's probably going to happen, right?
No, it's literal. You know, I went looking for arthropod specimens and I can't walk anymore.
I don't know what's going on, but it's okay.
Edit points maybe what's going on.
Yeah, maybe.
Been getting ready for the toy fair. Shaping up to be maybe the third convention in a row where I'm sick on the day, which is wonderful. I love that every single time it happens. But it's going to be a one, so should be good.
Now, so this is Toy Fair. This is not the Mega Toy Fair, the Mega Toy Sale thing, which I came over for last year.
No, this is the other thing.
Okay, but it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same thing, right?
It's kind of the same. It's the same thing, but like a bit better done.
Right. So what you're saying is Adelaide has two dueling toy fairs.
Yeah, just one of them is twice a year, and another one is once a year.
All right. Fair enough. I've been away for a few weeks. I've managed to grab a few acquisitions in the meantime while I've been away. So we'll talk about them a little bit later on in the show. But I think maybe we should get started. I haven't been able to do that this much and do this much in the last few episodes. But it does give me great pleasure to introduce the winner of this week's Bot Shots Weekly competition. And before I do this, I do need to actually just make my screen the presenter to everyone. Now, Bot Shots Weekly is our weekly Facebook photography competition. We encourage you to take your bots out of their cabinets, put them out into the big wide world, and leave them outside in the rain. Let animals come past and chew them. Don't do any of those things, but do take them out and set them up and give them a bit of a pose, which is exactly what this week's winner has done. This week's winner is Kyle Kirkwood, who has gotten himself a Studio Series 38 Optimus Prime. And I wonder if he actually, won on strength of the figure alone.
I mean, it's a good shot. It's definitely an iconic shot from a movie, but also he is quite lucky to have this. So who knows? Right. He did put together a good photo though, so I can't quite fault him there.
No, he certainly has. Now, a little bird tells me that Hasbro Australia has sent stock of Studio Series 38 to Amazon, and so Amazon, I expect, will be putting this guy up for order any day now. So if you are looking for this guy, I think he's a Voyager, not a leader class. Is that right?
Yeah, he's a Voyager because of the Studio Series scale nonsense.
Yeah. So if you are looking for Studio Series 38 Optimus Prime, I reckon you're going to find it on Amazon in the coming week, maybe 2 weeks, but we'll see how we go. And if it turns out that I'm right next week, I'll go and yell it from the rooftops, shall I?
Yeah.
See how it goes.
Now you mentioned scale, I think you might be like drastically out of scale, because isn't Bumblebee Prime like half the size of Old Bay Prime?
I'm gonna say reboot, and it doesn't matter anymore. At least I think the Bumblebee movie figures don't need to match the other Studio Series figures scale.
Yeah, that's about as much of a discussion as needs to be put into that, really.
Yeah, probably. We're going to move swiftly on and get to the news.
Straight into news.
Hasbro news.
That will take us into some news.
What news comes from via yonder?
Let's go take a look at some news. So while we are talking about reboots, Lorenzo de Bonaventura, who is the gentleman pictured here, he's been running his mouth again this week, and he's been doing this a bit, and it's the home release of Bumblebee on DVD and Blu-ray and download, right? So like it's kind of his job to get out there and talk about the movie and talk about the franchise and get the name of the movie into headlines. So like he's kind of doing his job, but he's been sort of flip-flopping over whether or not it's actually going to be a reboot or not for the last let's just say year.
Well, you say he's trying to drum up press of the movie. Well, that's what flip-flopping for the last 6 months certainly drums up a bit of press.
It certainly does, because every time this guy gives an interview, his name ends up on Transformers websites, and then they publish their own rebuttals, and then they publish opinions about it. And so, like, he's doing his job. He's generating buzz and press for the movie. He's getting the movie's name into headlines. Now, he has been asked this week in an interview. He has said in the past. He said in the past couple of weeks that they want to do another mainline Transformers movie that picks up directly after The Last Night. And this week, the kibosh was put on that when asked directly if they're working on a movie that will follow up The Last Night. He said no.
Thank you.
Now,
it's about as definitive as it gets, but he's said definitive answers in the past.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Like I said, his job is to run his mouth at this point. So whatever, we'll see.
I almost feel like we're lucky having had a bit of a drought of episodes over the course of time when Lorenzo's been running his mouth so much. To being able to just gently bypass this entire nonsense.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so look, he is a producer for the franchise, so. The future of the franchise does somewhat rest on his shoulders. So it is, however, notable that yes, his answer is no. There is no sequel to The Last Night coming. Now, of course, like everything else that goes on with these films, like there is wiggle room. Like the question that was asked is, are you working on something that picks up The Last Night's story? And his answer was no. It doesn't mean that they won't pick up some aspect of that story, but The Last Night's story is done.
Which is interesting considering that if they were to go on that route, like The Last Night is very much, it's both a like resolute ending and also a cliffhanger. So who knows? It is.
If I'm perfectly honest, I would be happy to see something that actually picks up that storyline and continues it, but I don't want it to be done by Bay, and I would want it to be a little bit cleverer about it. And so I don't mind if they want to sort of take the Bumblebee story, take the Unicron storyline and chuck it into whatever the Bumblebee franchise becomes. But for now, I think they should just leave it well enough alone.
Yeah, like over the last few months since Bumblebee has been a thing, and like the overall G1ifying of much of the Transformers franchise, I've felt myself like getting this weird feeling of nostalgia and almost missing the Bay movies. But I also know that I'm in the tiny, tiny minority when it comes to that. So it is probably the healthiest thing for the movies to move past that.
You know what? If you do get the pangs of nostalgia for those movies, there's 5 of them. It's about 15 hours of content. Just feel free to just go and watch them. It's okay.
Just cut it all into one big, you cut it all together into just one thing of just the Transformers stuff.
Oh my god! It could be the Bayverse supercut.
Oh god!
And there's your title, Brad, as you're editing the show. The Bayverse supercut. Whoa. All right. So so officially, the Bayverse is probably gone, and I guess does that mean that now we have the Nightverse?
I think we have the ambiguous. Let's call it the ambiguous reboot verse. Actually, why don't we just call it the B-verse?
The Bayverse and the B-verse. All right. All right. So in B-verse news, having said for the last 4 months that he's done his Bumblebee movie and he's going back to working at oh my god, I can't remember the name of his production company, Leica. Probably not Leica because that's a camera company. But so Travis Knight has this week given an interview where he's like, you know what, like I wouldn't mind telling another story in this universe. So I think Travis Knight might not be done with Transformers just yet, personally.
Well, it might have something to do with, for past few months, been people going, oh, hey, could we get Travis Knight back? And he might have seen that and go, oh, okay, people like this. They really like what I did. Okay, maybe I will come back.
It's very possible. When I saw this news today, when I saw this news on Twitter this afternoon, it says, so the headline on TFW is, Travis Knight expresses his interest for another Transformers movie. I quoted it and said, Transformers fan base expresses its interest in another Travis Knight movie. Because I think at this point, look, at this point, they can either decide, no, we're gonna switch directors every movie, which is what they were threatening to do, 5 or 6 years ago with the mainline Transformers movies, but they didn't. They stuck to Bay. They could go and change director every movie, and it sort of becomes a Bond franchise kind of thing, or they could hitch their wagon to someone else and pin their franchise on someone else instead of just being Michael Bay. And if that someone is Travis Knight, well, I think Knight has made enough statements that are somewhat dubious in terms of being a dyed-in-the-wool hardcore fanboy in the past. But I also think that he's also actually at least cut his teeth and earned his keep on Bumblebee, and I think the Transformers community is more comfortable with him than they are with Bay. And so, if they were to actually hire him for another movie, I don't think people would be that upset about it.
Yeah, like the thing is, if there was a hypothetical better director for the movies out there, then I would say, then I'd prefer to have that director. But we don't know who that is yet. Right now, Travis Knight, he's made a movie that is widely regarded, by critics and fans alike as the best movie, right? And that's a movie which is what we could pretty well tell to have a very troubled production. It still came out quite well. So in the event that he was able to, steer a production of a movie in a course that was, not so troubled, had less, back and forth between, directors and writers and producers, all of this. If it was, if there was something that was more dedicated to just making a movie the way he wants to make it, then it could have the potential to be something really special. If Bumblebee wasn't already.
Yeah, look, there's a couple of things that I think need to be acknowledged, though. One, they didn't give him that much budget to play with for Bumblebee, and we heard a lot of stories about how they ran out of money for the some of the Cybertron scenes. They couldn't put certain things in it that they wanted to. I would like to see those purse strings loosened up a little bit for whatever they do next, but you also do need to be a little bit careful in that the more money you spend, if Transformers is not the franchise that's earning $1 billion per movie at the moment, then they're probably not going to want to spend that much more. But I think they could do with raising the budget a little bit.
Yeah, I think they need to caution themselves, because Bumblebee was hampered by coming out on the stupidest weekend of movie releases I've ever seen, and also coming off of a negative blowback from the last night. Right, so it was hampered by but in any case, they're not going to want to throw all that money at him.
Yeah, I think so. I do wonder if the next one is a Bumblebee 2, or if it's Optimus Prime, or if it's just something else. They might even just adapt a particular story and just call it that.
It'll be one of those nebulous concepts Lorenzo's been throwing around, or something that Travis Knight ends up wanting to direct. I think I would caution the Transformers fan base as a whole in not, looking at this and going, "Oh, cool! Now we're going to get a pure G1 movie." Yeah, well,
I
know that a lot of people just want that, but
he's not.
Those Cybertron scenes were only added in the last 6 months before release. It's not. Don't assume that because there was a little bit going in one direction, that this is exactly what you're going to get.
So here's what I think they should actually do, right? If they're going to hitch their wagon tonight, they do actually have the option of actually doing the full CG animated prequel kind of thing, right? Because we did hear that was coming up as a Bayverse entry, doing an animated prequel on Cybertron.
It was scheduled to come out this year, actually, but production seems just fallen apart.
I think production never started, but yeah. But they do have the ability to actually go and do that. Like, they've spent a lot of time modeling that world and creating it. We'll talk about that in a little while. But I think you can do that, and you can hand that to someone else to do. But you can make Knight a producer on it instead of directing it, and let the CG animators go nuts on their direction and stuff. You do need to write it properly. Like, you do need to actually have a proper story at the heart of it. But I'm sure they can handle that, and then get Knight working on whatever the next live action movie is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because that hypothetical Cybertron movie has been just floating around for so long. Right now, is a precedent set. And it would be a perfect way to please those fans whose entire metric by which they measure the quality of Transformers media is how closely does it match G1.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a thing. I guess that's more of a topic for another time, I guess. But look, yeah. I would like to see Knight do something else. I don't know whether or not it needs to be overseeing the whole franchise from here on, or if it's just hey, get him to direct another movie. You got to bear in mind as well, like he's still kind of an up and coming director as well, because he holds this interesting position at Leica, and there's not that many people who can hold this position as like the head of the studio and also sort of step out and direct some stuff here and there. And so I think it's interesting that he's able to wear those two dual hats. But also Bumblebee as a production didn't involve his production house, and maybe a future installment might.
Yeah, well, I think the other thing that he might, in terms of that relationship between his production company and Bumblebee, is that him, in his production company, right, he would have essentially full creative control. Whereas a Bumblebee, that would have been much more restrictive, because he's just a director working in his studio under the purview of producers. So it's a matter of, if he's weighing up, his future choices for how he's going to approach movies, is he, what's he going to want to do between continuing to work at Leica when he can essentially do what he wants, or move or come back in and do something else with Transformers under Paramount?
I don't know. Like, I think so. Paramount is ultimately the distributor, and Allspark Pictures was the studio that created the film, right? And so if he comes back in to do more, he might say, like Laker gets contracted by Allspark to do particular things, and it just becomes a co-production. But it's still a Paramount thing. Like it's not like they get full creative control just because they're the people making the movie. There's still licensing and there's still particular sets of approval and story approval and things like that needs to go on. But I think the Transformers writers' room from a few years ago, I think whatever they come up with at the time, I know Bumblebee was one of the things that they came up with, but I think the other stuff that came out of that writers' room, I think, is gone.
Bumblebee was like, it was this weird thing that gestated for about 5 years, and then eventually for 3 years.
No, but that's not unusual for films.
No. I think Bumblebee was very. I don't think we should fall into the trap of thinking that Bumblebee was this set out from day one. This is what it's going to be. It was a very nebulously and ill-defined.
I don't think anyone's actually saying that. Like it's been very clear for.
I think some people, like maybe.
I don't think
you seem to hang around much smarter people.
Yeah, I don't think anyone who's on the podcast or has been listening to the podcast where you've been saying this repeatedly is under those impressions. And sure, there might be some other people out there, but I think we know that there has been a really interesting. I wouldn't necessarily say troubled, but it's been quite tumultuous during the production of the movie, and I'm really interested to see what happens if the next one is not so tumultuous, not troublesome, but all sorts of things. But yeah, while we are still talking about Bumblebee stuff a little bit now, 3A has released pictures of their deluxe Optimus Prime toy, and holy shit, it looks good, doesn't it?
Oh my god, yeah! I wasn't all that excited about this when I first teased it, but you look at that and just like beyond Bumblebee and Blitzwing, I don't know what it is about this one specifically that just seems to capture that that image from the film so perfectly.
So here's the thing, right? These do look good. I did look into getting the Bumblebee deluxe figure. It's still like $300.
Yeah, that's like cheapest I could find for Blitzwing was $250.
Yeah, and like I like the look of them, but I'm just not sure I like them that much. And I say this as someone who has spent a few $100s on a figure that I'll talk about later, and I'm about to get Beast Wars Masterpiece Megatron. I'm going to get MP44. Yeah, I'm going to get the new Masterpiece Prime as well. So like, I'm not averse to spending a few $100s on a figure. I'm just not sure I want to spend it on these figures. I don't know.
It is. I feel like if they were movie masterpiece scale, then it'd be a much easier decision for me. But it's like the fact that they're slightly above that scale, like where Bumblebee, I think it's like 8 inches tall, that throws it off. It means, I can't really fit that into anything else. So if you want to buy these, you're going to end up buying them for a dedicated display, essentially. They don't fit in anywhere else.
If you're going to buy these figures, I suggest you just buy the ones from Bumblebee, because when the next movie comes out and they've got more budget, there'll be more characters and it'll cost you a lot more to obtain the whole cast of the movie. So if you want to have a nice simple figure display for the 3A movie cast, then do it for this movie.
Yeah, I'm still in awe that some people have dropped $700 odd on every single premium scale that they've put out there. Like $700 a pop for each of those. So for the scale above these, so we might say, these are, this is going to be $300 when I'm not comfortable paying that. But there are people who, if you go into like 3A groups, there are people who think that these are too low budget, that these are just cheap and nasty versions. 3A collectors are something else. I mean, more power to them, because they're stuff on a level unlike anything else. But yeah,
I don't see it as that different to like people spending megabucks on the huge statues and stuff. And like if you recall, a few months ago, I did say that I think that there's space for something above masterpiece, and maybe this is it.
Yeah, certainly movie masterpiece wise. Like if this, especially if this deluxe size continues, so obviously they've shown 3 of these, but only 1 of a premium scale from Bumblebee. So obviously that smaller size and lower budget means they can pump them out a fair bit quicker. So
I think if
there is going to be something, in fact, they're pumping them out basically at the same rate as movie masterpiece. So if you're describing something above that, above a masterpiece level, well, movie wise, this may be it.
Maybe. You're talking me into getting them.
Yeah, well, I'm like, yeah, I've pre-ordered the Bumblebee and half slightly regret it because it's not going to fit into anything. But yeah, I look at this and this especially above Blitzwing, like it. I don't know, it just looks perfect. I can't fault it anywhere. It's
look, I'm sure once you get it in your hand, you'll find a bunch of things about it that
I can nitpick things to death, but yeah, like I'm just blown away by this. I don't have this is one of the things where like to dissect and analyze things for a story, but I can't really. It just looks perfect.
All right. Well, look, I'm not sure when it is when it's released. There's no word on price or release date.
No
Cybertron says, not Cybertron. T-Formers, sorry.
Yeah, there's no solicits just yet. It's just on show floor pics from an unnamed Comic-Con, but yeah, it's somewhere around the place. If you go to image number 9, you can also see it's like the only image that I've been able to find of the figure. You can see a premium scale Bumblebee there as well.
Yeah,
so that's the difference between deluxe and premium.
Oh yeah, I mean, we knew when 3A announced the deluxe series that they're going to be smaller, more affordable figures. So yeah.
I also just find this image kind of hilarious. It's just for whatever reason that visual of the giant Bumblebee next to a Prime.
It's giant B. It looks like there's another one next to him as well.
I think that's the last night version. Which is make this their 4th several $100 Bumblebee that they've done.
Well, if you got it, you should roll with it and repaint it, reuse it as much as you can. Especially if it doesn't have to transform, it's a little bit simpler for them, right?
Yeah, people buy them.
Yeah. Yes, clearly. All right, so a couple of brief mentions before we move off Bumblebee and on to something else. There was a neat little April Fool's gag this week announcing the release of Bumblebee on VHS cassette. Now, full props to Paramount here. They've really gone the whole hog. They actually apparently from the looks of what I've seen on some of the news sites, they did in fact put the movie on the VHS cassette and they did send it to people, which does address the major complaint that people had about the cassettes that we got in Australia, which is that they were blank. So good on them for doing that. They've sent the promo cassette out to a few sites, and as you can see, T-Form has had a bit of fun putting together with the Studio Series 38 and whatever the Studio Series B for the movie is. It is, however, not available. There is a lovely B kind rewind sticker on it, which is B with as in Bumblebee, and yeah, that's pretty neat from there. And
there's very little to be gained from putting on a VHS. They just did it because they could.
Absolutely. Like I said, it's it's a bit cute. Anywho, brief mention for that, and another brief mention comes to the storyboard information from Industrial Light and Magic, whose website I've never actually browsed, I must say, but at ilm.com, you will find under visual development, you'll find a portfolio of images showing how they went about creating some of the visuals for the Bumblebee movie. There's a lot of reference to the original cartoon in here as well, which is really
It's great
quite
when they
interesting
put
to
those
see.
comparisons and they see the artistic process behind it.
Yeah,
Of how they've updated it but kept it faithful. And there's other, cool little tidbits, like obviously made in a very short span of time. So basically all those character designs were Shockwave, Soundwave, whatever. They're all largely made from reused assets from other Transformers characters that ILM had.
yeah. I remember when some of the character art stills from the DVD came out a couple of weeks ago. People started looking at them and figuring out where they'd reused feet or reused various components. And I think it speaks to some quite savvy reuse of the components. That way, they get to avoid having to remodel things, and they can just reuse things that they don't matter, like a hand or a foot or whatever. It doesn't matter if someone's got the same hands or feet, but it also sort of goes to the fact that they are a mechanical race that will probably develop similar looking parts and pieces. So
Other cool stuff like sorry.
So there's a lot of references to the cartoon here, and they do say that the G1 cartoon was actually the absolute design reference for a lot of the action set pieces, which we know because we've seen people pull out the fact that there's a reference to the opening credits where two of the characters are fighting when Dropkick and Bumblebee are fighting later in the movie, and of course there's such G1 homage styles to a lot of the Transformers too.
Yeah, it's interesting that they have all this G1 stuff, but then they've thrown in Armada Thrust in there as well, which is, I don't know why that in particular stood out to me, but I found it was a really neat touch. That it just for whatever reason, this movie in this sequence and movie that's full of all these G1 tidbits and references. It's just this one throwaway reference to Armada. It really, I don't know, it stuck out to me in showing that, maybe but the people working on this they don't just have this superficial knowledge of Transformers that they go it's going to be the movies, but it looks like the 80s. It's no, they actually know what they're doing. They've got it seems to me that, at least those on a high level, have a deeper understanding and knowledge of the Transformers franchise as a whole.
Well, it's probably also likely that the people who are working at Industrial Light and Magic now, working on Transformers, were actually watching the cartoon as a kid.
But you're probably right. I have mates who are a couple years older than I am who work in the film industry nowadays, on CG stuff. It's not, and they would have been. I know how old they are. And they would have been kids when Armada was showing. So yeah, that's kind of weird to think about.
So yeah, look, I suggest having a look at it. The link to this gallery is in the show notes. So yeah, check it out and see. There's a lot of really interesting references to how they designed the characters, how they built them, and their design references.
Yeah, it's just great to look at from a production standpoint. Interesting stuff.
So the next story is that everyone has apparently gone a little bit crazy for Star Convoy this week, or to give him his proper name, what's he called? Galaxy Upgrade Optimus Prime.
Okay.
Have you not seen the post for this flying around?
Oh no, I've seen it. I'm just Japanese naming convention.
No, sorry. No, Galaxy Upgrade Optimus Prime is actually not this one. Sorry, that's the leader class siege figure. So sorry, what we're looking at is indeed, yes, Star Convoy. It is coming out under the Generations Select line, and it's got so it's appearing to be driven more by Takara Tomy than Hasbro, but if you do want the figure, you can pre-order it direct from Hasbro on Hasbro's Pulse website. Now,
what's interesting with that is the Generation Select thing has largely seemed to be a Western thing. We haven't really seen much mention of that Megatron or Swoop releasing in Japan. Whereas this is very much a Japanese release, but it, just a Japanese version of the character. All the promos in Japanese, only been showed at Japanese shows, but it's coming out under this Generation Select line, which leads me to think that this subline is actually a bit more universal than we may have previously thought.
It might be more universal than Transformers Universe.
Maybe.
I get nothing for that. Fair enough.
Maybe I'm just not getting jokes.
So what we are looking at. So Star Convoy is a repaint and a retool of Power of the Prime's Optimus Prime, and so like once you're aware of that, you can look at the legs and see what they've changed on the legs. You can look at the chest and you can see that yes, indeed, there is the evolution gimmick sort of still at play, where you've got the sort of the chest figure that transforms. And in Optimus Prime's case, it was Orion Pax. In the case of Star Convoy, I think the inner robot is either Optimus Prime or Convoy, and so then it slots into the armor. And the notable part that was revealed this week is that there is in fact a chromed up matrix inside the character and inside the figure and inside his chest, and you can, as you can see in this photo here, link the matrix into the gun.
I suppose the Matrix could be used as a weapon in theory. Like, it's a gimmick now. It's canon now. Just accept it.
It's canon now that the Matrix can do anything that you want. The Matrix gets new abilities for the sake of plot. So yeah, still impressive reuse of the mold. I feel like the Optimus Prime figure is quite well regarded. It's perhaps the better regarded out of the evolution gimmicks, out of the sort of the first wave with him versus Rodimus, or Rodimus Prime or Rodimus Unicronus. But
this was the one that sort of just came out and sort of quietly blew everyone away, because people were like, "Oh, this is surprisingly really good."
Yeah. This is the heaviest retool, I think, which is the inner robot, which on the original figure was a more Orion Pax representation, but here the inner robot is most definitely an Optimus Prime figure.
It does have that like slight, Jinrai quality to it. You know what I mean?
It does. He's also got yellow eyes.
A bit more angular. Yellow eyes, obviously. A bit liver. It does, which I don't recall being associated with Star Convoy. I mean, granted, Star Convoy is, like, for the amount of love that people have for it, is an incredibly obscure part of Japanese G1. But like, I don't recall Star Convoy being particularly related to Jinrai in any capacity. So
that seems fair.
This is just filling the slot, basically.
Yeah, it is really ultimately just stuff to go into the chest slot, but like it does sort of suit the figure, because you do need something to go in there. I kind of like it. Someone posted a picture of it on Twitter and went, "Oh my god, they've updated the Action Master," and they kind of have. Like he does look a lot like the Action Master figure. So yeah.
Actually, you're not wrong. On the whole, it's a good looking figure.
Very much. He is definitely
good chance to get a hold of this mold if you weren't so enamored with just buying another G1 Prime the first time around.
So, I believe it will be available from Takara Tomy Mall, but and yes, it is also available from Hasbro Pulse. Now, it is my hope that in the future this might mean that any of the other Takara Tomy Mall exclusives might also become available as Generation Selects from Hasbro Pulse. We'll see how it goes.
I assume it'll make its way to the West in some capacity.
Yeah. Now so we're not actually done with Star Convoy yet, although the next story is more interesting given the So what we are looking at here is the Transform and Rollout. They've managed to recapture a bit of interest from people this week, because they've revealed via renders their TR02. It's their second figure. The first was their their Transformer rollout Jazz. Fairly well received, I think, but ultimately, I felt like people sort of received Jazz and just went, yeah, it was all right.
It just came and went. Basically, I didn't hear anything bad about it.
I didn't hear it. I didn't hear anything bad about it, but I just didn't hear anything great about it either. Yeah. Now, depending on how long it takes them to come out with TR-02, their Commander of Stars, it could be quite interesting. But a lot of people have seen these pictures this week, and they are really interesting.
Yeah, no, I think this is. I think what really interests me here is that it's quite specifically not animation accurate. Because animation Cybertron Prime is directly based off of a toy, whereas this has that quite blocky aspect to it. Whereas this is quite obviously it's a slimmed down, more anime-esque version of the character. It's got that pushed out crotch, that slimmed torso, that wider stance in the legs. Like he's not animation accurate at all. He's clearly Cybertron Prime, but they've changed it up a whole lot purely for the sake of just making it look like a better toy. And I think that the figure actually looks better for it, especially considering it seems to transform pretty damn well.
It does. His truck mode is quite good. I mean, it's a bit sort of like futuristic and not necessarily that well thought out, but still it looks good. Now we don't really have much by way of price or release date for this guy yet. It's very early days, so there's not going to be that much yet. We'll find out more. But, and of course, they are renders. They're not actually real prototypes or real figures.
It's true. Which is I suppose that gives you an idea of a stage of a project, right? Because renders can be made up like that, whereas.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, it's obviously they've designed it, but they've got to figure out how to manufacture it and make it all hang together, tab together properly. Let's have a look. There's I think second last story, Hallmark. Now Hallmark, this actually came out last week, but I don't think we covered it. Hallmark has a tradition now. They create Transformers-based Christmas ornament for people's Christmas trees everywhere. And this year, the ornament is based on the G1 Bumblebee toy, although it's very notably the reissue, which has the more cartoon-accurate head.
I'm not the only one who finds that cartoon-accurate head disconcerting, am I?
You mean because it appears to be disconnected from his body?
Yeah, even if it wasn't disconnected, it just looks strange.
I think it looks fine on the toy.
On the toy, I don't know. It's always thrown me off for whatever reason.
Yeah, fair enough. I think it looks fine. I think we're looking at a render. We're looking at a render here, so it looks a little bit more glossy than the real thing probably will, and everything's perfectly put in place instead of what happens when it gets manufactured. But I think it looks good. I'll be happy to have this on my tree. I think I need to actually chase down some of the other Hallmark Transformers ornaments and maybe give myself a Merry Christmas for 2019.
Yeah, it's a nice little thing.
Yeah. Now they don't generally come to Australia, so if you are after one of these, you'll probably need to order it online and get it shipped to you. Yeah. That said, I do know people here who have them.
People seem to get a hold of them in the club, around Christmas, and I see a bunch of posts about them. So
yeah, they do.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's not too hard nor expensive.
No, people are not that afraid to import them, and these are not statues. They're not super expensive items. They're just they're more sculptures, really. Final bit of news for the night. There is a new update to X-Transbots Arkose, which is their masterpiece G1 Beachcomber. He is calling they are giving him the very interesting nickname of Arkose version 2, and he's got a nice new paint job, and they appear to have fixed some of the issues with tolerances and things not tabbing in. So if you don't already have a masterpiece Beachcomber, it might be worth waiting for this guy to come out. Now He is expected to release in the second quarter of 2019, which means, so we're in April now, so this is second quarter, so he's either going to be out April, May, or June, or July, because they'll probably miss their deadline.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard that this is one of the better X-Transbots releases, but I think you've had some experience with this figure, whereas I haven't. Like, is that true? Is this one of the better things that they put out?
Yeah, he is a nice figure. It's just that it's Beachcomber. And so it's not a character that's been crying out for a masterpiece scale rendition. And so it's just sort of like, yeah, I guess that's what Beachcomber would look like as a masterpiece. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of creative complexity behind it, but if it makes a good figure, then you can't really complain. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, look, they've got some really good articulation in him here as well. Like, you can see the poses that he's pulling off here. This is a little guy. He's not legend scale. He is a little bit bigger than that because he is a masterpiece scale Beachcomber. He's a masterpiece scale.
Is he about the size of Bumblebee?
Yeah. He goes well with masterpiece B.
Yeah, I do. I quite like the proportions here. It's what's standing out to me. Like, he's just looks natural in all the poses they show him in.
Yeah,
nothing looks really awkward or out of place. It all just seems to flow quite nicely.
Yeah, I agree. And that is about it for news this week.
I hear one of us has new acquisitions.
One of us does have new acquisitions. Let's go through some acquisitions quickly, and then of course a quick podcast is a good podcast, so we might cut it off there, shall we? But I have a few things to show off, right? Number one, I put some photos of these pins. Actually, no, I didn't put photos of these pins. I put a photo of this acrylic keychain charm. Hang on, I need to make myself the presenter for this to work. There we go. So I put a photo of this Soundwave acrylic keychain charm in the group today, and so so it's from a Kickstarter called Family Superior, and it's sort of centered around Soundwave sort of being a bit of a father figure to all the cassettes, and the cassettes sort of being a bit like mischievous children. And so you can see he's got the two birds. He's got Ravage sort of being the cat in his lap, and then there's Rumble and Frenzy, and I'm not saying which is which, hanging around, sort of like all tired out from being however mischievous they are. And the other thing is that I don't know if you can see from here, if it's going to focus. It's probably not, but his Decepticon logo has been replaced with a heart.
It's wholesome.
I know. It is really wholesome, and it's really nice, and it's very, very cute and lovely. And so the Kickstarter was based around these enamel pins as well. And so there's sort of a profile headshot of Soundwave surrounded by some flowers that may or may not be the murder flowers from IDW.
If those flowers have become a running motif in fan art for the wrong reasons.
No, I don't think they're necessarily for the wrong reasons.
I see them show up a lot nowadays.
Yeah, they do show up a lot, but I think they're fine. I think their introduction was quite a poignant story, and I don't think people are misusing them. So here's Ravage again, surrounded by some flowers, which not really that inappropriate for Ravage, right?
Yeah, it's really well done.
It is really well done. And for some reason I got two, but the second Ravage I think might be a second of some kind. So yeah, don't know, but I don't know. We might put the second Ravage up for a competition in TCCA. There's a pin set of Rumble and Frenzy, and they're linked by a chain, which is quite neat. And same thing. There's a pin set of Laserbeak and Buzzsaw, again, sort of linked up by a chain as well.
Those are really great. That whole Soundwave being a dad for the cassettes figures, like one of the. It's just one of the best running jokes in the franchise.
Yeah, I know, right? It's cute. They also the Kickstarter rewards also came up with bookmarks, just for some of the artwork on them as well, which I thought was quite nice.
That's actually really gorgeous.
It actually really is, isn't it?
That's stunning.
And on the back of it, it might explain some of the reference. It's the Cactus family, which is which stands for endurance, strength, protection, warmth, and care. So yeah. And also as other bonuses for the Kickstarter, they gave some stickers with the badge design sort of at a larger scale as well.
Nice, they hooked you up with a good amount there.
Yeah, they did. I'm very happy. I need to actually, they only just arrived today, so I need to actually get back to the person who ran the Kickstarter and thank them for all the goodies that they sent. So, yeah. Other acquisitions. Today I went shopping, and when I went to Toymate in Chatswood, I found a single pack of BotBots. I found BotBots single packs, single blind packs. So I dutifully opened up my phone and picked up a few packs and looked at the numbers on the back and looked at the identification guide. And I got to say, this guy's pretty amazing. I think I've got the Series 2 version of him as well. But may I present to you Totes McGoats?
I'm sorry, what?
He is a transformer named Totes McGoats. And he turns into a tote bag, as you can see, like when you sort of compress everything down there. So yeah, I'm really impressed. Like I feel like we've said this before, like they are having a lot of fun with the BotBots names. And the next one is also no exception. And this one might be my favorite BotBot. It is a little Venus flytrap plant called Venus Frog Trap. Because technically in this mode he's meant to be a frog. But also like it can get really angry, and he can open his mouth really wide and bite down on some naughty transformers when they attempt to do something bad. So they are my current favorite BotBots figures. Ask again next week, I might have some more.
There are some people who have an issue with the Transformers franchise going in that direction.
You know what?
I'm one of those people.
You know what? I haven't met them, and I'm really happy that they're not in my echo chamber on Twitter, and that everyone I know is just super into them, and they all enjoy playing with BotBots.
That's the way to be, because they're great.
They are great.
They're not for me, but they're just excellent.
Yeah. So if someone gave you a BotBot, then it might change your mind. They are. You can get one for $5. Just go and pick one and adopt it and take it with you.
I may just do that. But it's my new son.
Yeah, exactly. You can do that just to shut me up.
finally get you to stop. If I buy a BotBot, will you just stop talking about it on the podcast?
Look, if I buy, no, because they keep releasing new ones. So yeah. We're never going to be done with BotBots now, because like there's going to be like new series of them forevermore.
Yeah, I actually wonder. I do half wonder how long we're going to keep going.
No, it's just been such a sudden, intense burst of creative output for Transformers that like we haven't seen anything like it before. We're only used to seeing what, like 4 or 5 characters in a wave, not 60.
Yeah, they crank them out really fast. Like I wonder, to what extent it's a dedicated team as opposed to having like a whole bunch of people from different departments working on it at once. Like,
yeah,
the structure is like, is there someone whose job is to just come up with names for BotBots?
Yes, there is. I would dearly like to meet that person.
I'd like to be that person.
Yeah. All right, one last acquisition, and then we're going to go. I don't need to talk about this guy too much because we've talked about him a lot on the podcast, but I did secure myself a Mango Prime. Now,
surprisingly good looking.
He is not surprisingly good looking, because like we always knew how good looking it was from the photos, but good. Let me.
Oh, you might have known.
Let me bring a little bit more light onto the subject here, right? Like that orange finish, the mango finish, like it's a little bit fire guts, but it's actually not. It's not that intense, and it's a very nice, it's a very nice sort of like pasty orange, and that's why I call him Mango Prime.
It has that quality to it, especially blended with a white as well.
Yeah.
Was this one of those shoe tie-ins?
It sure was. Yeah. So the number of MP10 repaints that they came out with for the shoes was pretty intense. But like they all just were not that interesting to me. But the orange on this really spoke to me, and so I made sure that I've got this one. And I don't need the others. I'm happy with this.
Yeah, it is a visually stunning thing for sure.
It sure is, yeah. And so that is new acquisitions. I should have Beast Wars Megatron, the Masterpiece Beast Wars Megatron next week. But next week, Friday night is Good Friday, so I can't guarantee we'll actually be doing a show or all that will necessarily all be around for it. So it might be another couple of weeks before I get to show him off. We'll see how we go. I think Brad has him as well. So if Brad's on next week, then you can bet that he'll be showing off Beast Wars Megatron.
Yeah, I'm interested to see your takes on that after a lot of the in-hand reports we've heard.
Yeah, I've been told to make sure that you just don't just make sure that you handle his crotch properly. Also true in so many cases.
Fair enough.
So yeah, and in fact, also apparently, Michael Vella was also saying that the sort of the scales and the pointy bits on the back, I think he said he found them more of a problem than the sort of possible snappy crotch. But we'll see how it goes. Interesting.
Yeah, I haven't quite looked into that or into issues all that much. So, in any case, I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, look, I've been quite distracted for the last few weeks. I haven't been paying a lot of attention, so I'll be interested to get Beast Wars Megatron and take him out and have a bit of a play with him and pose him for some photos and see how it goes.
Awesome.
All right. I think we might bring the show to a close. It's been a quiet one, but it's a quiet one and a quick one and a good one. So I think that's it. So thank you for listening, everyone. And if you're watching the live record, which apparently a couple of people are, then thanks for checking us out. You can find out more info about these stories and more in the links in the run sheet. Find us at transformersweekly.podbean.com. You can also find the Facebook page Australian Transformers Weekly. And, of course, Max and I are both in Transformers Collectors Club Australia on Facebook. You can subscribe to us through everything. I don't think we really need to call out all the individual podcast apps anymore. But we are a production of Transformers Collectors Club Australia. It's a registered club in Victoria run by volunteers who donate their time and money to make the club better for everyone. Our goal is to connect Transformers fans around the country, and we do it by engaging the collecting community with things like this and things like what you're doing over this weekend, Max, going out to the toy fair. Yeah,
it should be good as per usual. I'm doing a joint stand with myself and TCC, and we'll have a couple of people to help out there. So thank you to Morgan and Sean in advance.
It's always nice to have minions.
It is. It's always nice to be able to go to the toilet without having to worry about your stuff being stolen as well.
Always good, yes. All right. Okay. On that note, on that bombshell, that is it from us. We'll be back with more Transformers news either next week or the week after, given that it's Easter. We'll see how we go. All right. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.